Hey guys, welcome to Armadillo Armament. Today, we're going to be discussing the venerable Trijicon SRO, one of my favorite red dot optics on the planet. Before we jump into the video, I have partnered with Red Pawn Shop. If you use the code on the screen right now, you will get 5% off your order. I'll get a small kickback, and he makes really cool Armadillo Armament patches. And he is going to remove 1 pound of junk from the ocean and plant a tree for every single item within your order. I love working with him. You're getting a cool patch and you're saving the planet. All right, so before we talk about the SRO, a quick history lesson. The RMR Type 1 came out primarily as a piggyback option for the ACOG that we all know and love. It was quickly outphased by the RMR Type 2. The Type 2 was mainly made because the Type 1 likely wasn't resistant to like pistol slide operation, and the Type 1 would actually die, which is uncharacteristic of the RMR. The Type 2 comes out, and the Type 2 is, generally speaking, and I would consider even today, the most reliable pistol dot optic on the planet. And it has been dominating the market for the past 10 years. It's important to note the RMR Type 2 clocked in at $600, $700 for a very long time. It was a worthwhile addition to your handgun, but it was a expensive addition to your handgun. HoloSun comes into the scene within that time frame, and they start making really nice optics for a much more affordable price. Same with many others. The Delta Point Pro was very expensive, but had its niche for a certain amount of time, even though I hate the Delta Point Pro. But the HoloSun market share really has, or they've turned it on its head. HoloSun has been competing with Trijicon the past couple years because their dot optics are fantastic. Trijicon has been sitting there kind of stagnant. Trijicon, in my opinion, is very similar to Glock. They make something and they make it for a long time and they make it really well. I'd argue that the Trijicon RMR is the most popular red dot optic, of course, but they also pioneered the red dot on a pistol. HoloSun is just taking what they're doing and making small incremental changes over time that add a suite of features. This is all important. The reason I bring all this up is because Trijicon sees what HoloSun is doing. We're talking auto brightness, we're talking side loading batteries, we're talking larger windows, reticles, right? They see what HoloSun is doing and they say, okay, the RMR has been dominating the market for how long? We are going to release a new optic. In comes the SRO. It's important to note the SRO is a competition optic, and that is going to be a theme of the video. The SRO is not a replacement for the RMR that we all know and love. It is not a replacement for even some HoloSun dots. That being said, it is one of, if not my favorite red dots on the market. So, what does the SRO do differently than the RMR, you might be asking? Well, the RMR on the screen right now is a much smaller window optic, and it doesn't have a top loading battery. Like I said, the SRO is positioned towards the competition crowd. So the durability on the SRO is also going to be significantly less than the RMR. The window on the SRO, of course, is a circle. It is a oval at the top, and that is going to increase its fragility significantly. The RMR Type 2 is well known of being an optic that can survive IED blasts. You can drop it from shoulder height dozens of times and nothing is going to happen. Now, once again, we are going to be comparing and contrasting the RMR and the SRO, and why I think the RMR still may have a place today, but the SRO is well worth your time. All right, so the most important aspect of a red dot, in my opinion, what many people are going to be clicking on this video for is going to be the reliability and how it's been holding up for me. My SRO has been flawless. This SRO is about between 2,500 and 3,000 rounds, I'm guessing at this point, which I wouldn't consider a extremely long term, long format review. However, 2,000 rounds would identify issues. I'm pushing very good split times. I am racking this off of pieces of wood. I'm racking it off my shoe. And I have dropped this on my bathroom floor multiple times. I've dropped it in grass a couple times. I'm not going to be doing any Sage Dynamics testing. He has a phenomenal video. I recommend you just go watch it. I'm not going to replace Mr. Aaron Cowan. However, my reliability has been fantastic. The SRO is 100% a more fragile optic because of the fact that it has that circular window. The RMR has the posts on the left and right side from that image previously up on the screen right now, and those posts are going to act as a standoff between the glass and the ground. That is actually a patented design, which is why the RMR is so tough. Companies are not allowed to infringe on that design. Notice how the RMR HD, which I will be having a review on, also maintains that design. But the SRO doesn't have that design. That is once again because it is a competition optic. When we are concealed carrying our weapon, are you dropping your pistol on the ground constantly? Do you need to be able to drop your pistol from 17 feet up onto concrete? Are you jumping out of helicopters and you want to make sure if your gun falls that it's going to be fine? Well, you may want to look at the RMR. You may want to look at the RMR HD. You may want to look at the RCR. The SRO may not be the optic for you, but I want us to be, I want us to come at this with an open mind. As a concealed carrier, do we need our optic to be able to survive those tests? My answer is no. I've yet to break this SRO, and many people have reported that its reliability is also phenomenal. I've seen people say that they throw this up in the air after every single training class. I'll put that channel on the screen right now, and it has survived 15 plus drops. However, when it went through a airport security or when it was flying, he opened up his Pelican case and it did have some cracks in the window. So the SRO is undoubtedly a more delicate optic, but is it enough for the average concealed carrier? I happen to think so, and I think the pros greatly outweigh the cons of this red dot optic. So, why would you buy an SRO? If the RMR is so much more reliable, why stick with an SRO that is going to be more fragile? It's 100% because of the window. Trijicon knew what they were doing when they set out to make a competition optic. They didn't make an optic that was larger on the sides because who cares? Recoil is vertical, right? Pistols don't go left to right, they go up and down. They made the window size on the RMR extremely high, extremely tall. And what that does is it makes it so during recoil, if I'm doing my job, or if I'm running a very high-end, like comped gun, or if you're just really good at shooting, the dot will not leave the window at all. It's important to realize that the dot recentering in your window is likely the most important aspect of shooting with a dot, because if my hands do this, like super high up, as long as the gun recenters perfectly every time, I can get crazy splits. However, when I'm shooting the SRO, depending on my recoil, the dot may not even leave the window at all. So not only is it recentering based off my skill, but the dot not leaving the window allows my eyes to not get confused for that millisecond. I don't lose the dot at all, and it makes the shooting experience just significantly more fluid. Trijicon knew what they were doing. Um, and I think that the SRO, even today, is the best shooting dot on the planet that you're going to put on pistols, not including those weird competition setups that run competition dots. The SRO, due to that height, due to the circle, I find the circle just draws my eyes into the center of the glass much better. The glass clarity is significantly better than the RMR Type 2, which has a very visible blue notch filter. This SRO has a very faint notch filter. And for those of you that don't know, that notch filter is going to block out certain light. It's also going to make it so your battery lasts a little bit longer. Because once again, Trijicon isn't looking for a optic that's going to last you 5 years and the ability to jump out of a helicopter. They're looking for an optic that improves the shooting experience. And the SRO 100,000% makes that shooting experience better. It is my favorite shooting red dot optic by far. Another reason you may be interested in the SRO or the newer models by Trijicon is the fact that it is a top-loading battery. That top-loading battery means you do not need to unmount the optic in order to change the battery, which people care a little bit too much about, in my opinion. With a RMR, you're doing it like once a year. Realistically, you can do it once every couple of years. I've seen some dots actually last multiple years. Um, However, you probably should be doing it once a year. I know Aaron does it once on his birthday, right? But not having to take off the optic is a pretty large pro. It means that if you're not using the gun very often, instead of having to go to the range to be able to use it again after changing the battery, instead you can just undo that cap at the top using like a quarter, or I think a shell will actually take that out. And you can change that battery. So you don't really need to worry about these little screws. Screws holding down micro optics are probably the worst part about them. I don't know about you, but I've stripped about 45 different screws on optics. I'm known for breaking optic screws between all my friends. I'm just a bad luck syndicate for screws. And I consider it a pretty large pro. Is it a game changer? No, just, re-zeroing your optic once a year isn't the end of the world, but it is a nice, convenient feature. Let's talk about some features of the SRO. We have 8 brightness settings with a auto brightness setting, and 2 of those brightness settings are going to be for night vision devices, like so. I'll have a review on those eventually. They're really nice. Which is kind of weird. When people saw the SRO being a competition optic, they said, well, why would you have night vision? And I think the fact of the matter, or the truth, is that Trijicon knows that this can be a duty optic. Now, if I'm law enforcement or military, I'm probably not wanting an SRO. I'd rather want one of their more robust models. However, I think Trijicon knows that this optic is perfectly reliable enough for 99.9% of situations. So they gave it those night vision settings. They gave it that auto brightness, which many people like. Remember, if this was just a competition optic, they could have just put on 5 normal brightness settings and called it a day. But instead, they went all out. They gave it that full suite of features. And I really appreciate that. I find that these settings are spaced apart enough that they work in any lighting condition. And I also find that the auto brightness does a decent job. Now, I have a RMR HD 3.25 MOA model, which I will be having a review on eventually once I get some more time on it. And the auto brightness on that model is significantly better with its front-facing lens. However, the auto brightness on this does a pretty decent job. And if you want to lock out of that mode and just use a brightness setting that you're comfortable with in most environments, which is probably the better option between the two, you can do that. The electronics package in this is fantastic. It's much more advanced than the RMR because it does have that lockout feature. It does have all those brightness adjustment features. So the SRO, yes, once again, it's a competition optic, but I think clearly Trijicon knew what they were doing, and they knew people were going to want to use this in a self-defense scenario. All right, so the last things to talk about with the SRO are concealability and where do I feel that it sits in the market, as well as a quick discussion on the JagerWorks Bros, JW. The Bros is a shield you can buy for the SRO. The SRO doesn't look like this, obviously. It is enclosed in that JagerWorks Bros additional shield that you can purchase for about 50 bucks. What that shield does is it is, of course, going to protect against concussion from the ground or whatever have you. It's probably not going to deflect bullets. But it is a nice little peace of mind attachment for your SRO that is going to make it a lot more reliable, or a lot more durable, rather. There are some videos online of this dropping and not causing any cracks. Now, the JagerWorks Bros is going to increase the height ever so slightly, and then it is, of course, obviously, going to increase the width left, right, and above. That being said, I think it looks really nice. I think it works really well, and I recommend it, assuming you can find them in stock. They're pretty hard to find. Go look on Reddit if you want some leads on where to get them. JagerWorks Bros, that is going to completely, in my opinion, potentially remove the durability aspect of the SRO. So you are getting close to that RMR durability. Now, another thing you may be saying is, wow, this SRO is huge. And it is. It's thicker than a Glock, and Glocks are pretty thick guns, especially with this JagerWorks Bros on it. Um, it doesn't increase printing whatsoever. This is a LAS concealment holster in a really cool camera pattern. And you may think that, once again, this is a huge optic, but it doesn't really stick out from the holster at all. When this is in your pants, this part is going to be tucked into your stomach, realistically. And I don't find concealing this to be an issue whatsoever. This is the exact same amount of concealment that I would get from like an RMR CC or my RMR HD. It is a complete non-factor, and stop worrying about it. So, parting thoughts on the SRO. Where does this position itself in the market? Well, I will be having a review on the RMR HD coming up soon. I have some time on the Acro, I have some time on the RCR, of course, the other RMR models, and I've gotten around to a lot of the red dot optics. And I can confidently say this is my favorite shooting red dot on the planet, to the point where I may end up putting this on my Alchemy and taking it off my Roland style build. It is a delight to shoot. It makes the shooting experience so much better because I'm able to track the dot through the entire recoil cycle on a majority of firearms. The large window, when I bring it to my eye, at no point do I ever have an issue finding the dot on the draw stroke, which is an issue for some people that aren't great with dots. Or if your dot is really small, like the RMR-CC, which is a phenomenal dot, and I love that dot, every once in a while I find myself bringing that up to my eye and it just being slightly outside the window because it's such a small window. That's not an issue here. This is always where I need it to be. During recoil, it's always going to bring itself back to where I need it to be. This is a phenomenal shooting dot and it deserves your attention, especially considering the price. And I held off on price until the end of the video, but it's important. The RMR HD and the RCR can be found for almost $700. You heard that right. The SRO on a good deal on r/gun deals, or maybe in shops around you, you can find this for a little bit over 400. 500 would be a good average, but I've seen this go for $420, $410, I think, on gun deals. That is criminal. Is the RMR HD $300 better than this? No, it's not. It's just not. And RMRs, RMR Type 2s, you can find those for $300 with a rebate from Trijicon. Is an RMR HD twice as good as an RMR Type 2? Hell no. This has some phenomenal features that set it aside, and if you are interested in better auto brightness and a more enclosed optic, yeah, look at the RMR HD and look at the RCR. But the SRO, because of these new optics coming out, it has made the price on this decrease recently, and I hope it's going to continue to decrease. And if it does, let's say reach, it's already a hard recommend for me, but if it reaches like $350, my lord, I would never buy an RMR HD in my life because you could buy two SROs for that much money. And the SRO is 100,000% worth the money. So that's why I held off on price, because I think that's a large factor for many of us. We don't want to spend $700 on our pistol optic, just a little optic that goes on our pistol, and it'd be more expensive than a lot of the guns. We want to buy an optic that's, good value. And the SRO is phenomenal value right now, and I hope it gets even better. So, what do you guys think about the Trijicon SRO? It is slowly becoming one of my favorite, if not my favorite, concealed carry optics on the planet. I may end up putting this on my Alchemy, actually. Comment down below if you have any experience with it. Comment down below if yours broke, or if you're a new red dot shooter and you found that this is so much better than the others, or you're having a great time with it because of that larger window. Your comments and your likes and your subscriptions really make me want to continue doing this channel, and it helps me a lot. It helps the YouTube algorithm, and maybe one day we'll get to the point where companies actually send me some optics instead of me having to spend $10,000 of my own money. Once again, though, thank you for all your support. I'd love to continue the discussion down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.